6 months earlier, my life was a chaotic, beautiful symphony of my own making. Innovate Next wasn't just a company to me. It was my child. I had conceived it in my tiny apartment, sketching out business plans on napkins at 3 a.m., fueled by cheap coffee and an unwavering belief that I could build something that mattered. Rohan had been there from the start. When I quit my stable job to chase this impossible dream, he held my hand and told me he believed in me. Giving him 50% of the company felt like the most natural thing in the world. We were partners in everything. His strengths were supposed to complement my weaknesses. I was the visionary, the creative force. He was the numbers guy, the pragmatist who handled the day-to-day finances. And then there was Natasha, my rock. We'd navigated the treacherous waters of college together, celebrated every milestone, and cried on each other's shoulders through every heartbreak. When my company started to grow, hiring her as my head of operations was a no-brainer. She was brilliant, organized, and the only person I trusted as much as Rohan. The three of us were a team. Our late nights at the office were filled with laughter, pizza boxes, and a shared sense of purpose. We were building an empire together, or so I thought. The first crack in our perfect facade was so small, I almost missed it. We were in a brainstorming session for a new marketing campaign. I pitched an idea I was passionate about, one that focused on user stories and emotional connection. "I don't know, Aisha," he said, leaning back in his chair and steepling his fingers. "It sounds a little soft. We need something with more bite, more aggression." I started to defend my point, but Natasha cut me off. "He's right, Aish. We need to focus on hard metrics, not fluffy feelings." A small sting of surprise hit me. Natasha had always been my biggest supporter, the one who championed my most out-of-the-box ideas. For her to side with Rohan so quickly and so dismissively was odd. But I pushed the feeling down. I was the CEO. It was my job to listen to feedback, not get my feelings hurt. I told myself it was just healthy debate. A few weeks later, the red flags started to wave a little more frantically. Natasha began taking hushed phone calls, stepping out of the office and speaking in low tones. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd wave a dismissive hand and say, "Oh, it's just family drama. You know how it is." I respected her privacy, but a tiny seed of unease was planted. She was becoming more guarded, more secretive. The easy, open friendship we always shared was starting to feel strained. The financial anomalies came next. I was reviewing our quarterly expenses and noticed a consultant fee for $10,000 paid to a company I'd never heard of, Nightingale Solutions. I brought it up with Rohan. "Oh, that," he said, not even looking up at his laptop. "That was for some market analysis software. Natasha found them. It was a one-time thing." Nightingale Solutions. Why haven't I seen the report? "It was mostly technical data, babe. I didn't want to bore you with the details," he said, finally looking at me with that charming smile that always made my defenses melt. "I handled it, don't worry." And like a fool, I didn't worry. I trusted him. I trusted them both. Why wouldn't I? The turning point came a month before the investor meeting. We had a crucial dinner with a potential key client, someone I had been courting for months. The night of the dinner, I was getting ready when Rohan called. "Hey, bad news," he said, his voice sounding rushed. "The client had to move the meeting up by an hour, and they changed the location to the downtown club. Natasha and I are already here. There's no way you'll make it in time. We'll handle it." "What? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" My heart sank. "It was a last-minute thing. Don't worry, we've got this. We'll represent you well. Love you." And he hung up. I spent the rest of the night pacing my apartment, a sick feeling churning in my gut. It just didn't make sense. The next day at the office, I saw them by the coffee machine. They were standing closer than usual, and when Rohan said something, Natasha laughed and playfully slapped his arm. They looked less like colleagues and more like a couple sharing a private joke. When they saw me, they instantly straightened up, their smiles vanishing. That was the moment the fog of denial began to lift. The small, unsettling incidents clicked into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. That night, I told myself I was working late. I waited until the office was empty and silent. I walked past Rohan's office and saw the door was slightly ajar, and I could hear them inside. Their voices were low. I held my breath and leaned closer. Just a few more weeks, Rohan was saying. After the funding comes through, we'll be free. And Natasha? Natasha's voice was a soft whisper. There was a pause. Then Rohan's voice, cold and final. Aisha will get what she deserves. Our new beginning is just around the corner. My heart didn't just stop, it shattered. The air left my lungs in a silent scream. In that moment, I realized the man I loved and the woman I called my best friend were not my partners. They were my enemies, and they had been planning my destruction from within the walls of my own kingdom. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it felt like I was drowning. But as I stood there in the dark, silent hallway, the heartbreak and the shock slowly began to curdle into something else. Something cold, hard, and sharp. Anger. And with it, a steely resolve. They thought I was a fool. They thought I was weak. I would let them keep thinking that right up until the moment I burned their world to the ground. I went home that night, and I didn't cry. I sat in the dark of my living room, the city lights twinkling outside my window, and I let the cold fury wash over me. The grief would come later. Right now, I needed a plan. They had underestimated me my entire life. My parents, my professors, and now my husband and best friend. They saw my kindness as weakness. They were about to learn how wrong they were. My first move was to understand the financial damage. I couldn't use our company accountant. He was loyal to Rohan. So I found a freelance forensic accountant online, a man with impeccable credentials and a reputation for discretion. I met him in a quiet coffee shop, far from my office. I told him I suspected a partner of minor embezzlement and needed him to do a quiet audit. I paid him from my personal savings. A week later, he called me. "It's worse than you think," he said, his voice grim. "It's not minor. Over the past 8 months, small, seemingly random payments have been made to a shell corporation, Nightingale Solutions." My blood froze. The name from the expense report. "What does that company do?" I asked. "As far as I can tell, nothing. It exists only on paper. The corporation is registered to a single director." He paused. "The director's name is Natasha." The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. They weren't just planning to take my company. They were actively stealing from it. From me. The accountant sent me a detailed report, a trail of digital breadcrumbs that led directly from my company's bank account to their secret slush fund. That was my first piece of hard evidence. Next, I needed to know the full extent of their personal betrayal. As the CEO and system administrator, I had every right to ensure the integrity of our company's network. That weekend, I went into the office alone. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was firm. I installed a sophisticated monitoring software on our main server, one that would capture internal communications. It felt like a gross violation of privacy, but they had left me no choice. I was no longer a wife or a friend. I was a general gathering intelligence on the enemy. I didn't have to wait long. The things I read over the next few weeks turned my stomach. Their chat logs were a sickening mix of secret rendezvous, stolen kisses in the supply closet, and cruel jokes made at my expense. They mocked my passion, my work ethic, calling me a naive workhorse who was building their dream life for them. Rohan. She was so proud of her presentation today. It was almost cute. She has no idea it's her farewell speech. Natasha. Just a little longer. Once the funding is in, we can finally buy that house in the hills. You and me, far away from all this. Rohan. She won't know what hit her. By the time she figures it out, we'll be untouchable. I saved every conversation, every cruel word, every damning admission. Each file I saved felt like another nail I was hammering into their coffins. This was my second piece of evidence. But I needed something more, something undeniable. I needed to hear it from their own mouths. I knew Natasha's ego was her weak point. She desperately needed to feel like the smartest person in the room. So I decided to play the part of the worried, oblivious friend. I invited her out for drinks after work to a quiet corner in a dimly lit bar. "I'm so worried about Rohan," I said, stirring my drink and forcing a tremor into my voice. I had my phone on the table between us, the recording app silently active. "I thought I did," I whispered, letting a single, calculated tear roll down my cheek. "I'm just trying to make this company a success for all of us." This was the moment. Natasha leaned in, her eyes gleaming with a sense of superiority. "And you have," she said smoothly. "But maybe it's time for you to take a step back. Let someone else handle the stress for a while." She paused, then delivered the line I was waiting for. "Don't worry about the company's future, Aisha. Rohan and I have a solid plan to make sure this company is secure, especially after the funding. It's all taken care of." Bingo. It wasn't an outright confession of the entire scheme, but it was an admission that she and Rohan had a secret plan for the company's future, a future that didn't include me. Paired with the financial records and the chat logs, it was damning. I saved the recording, labeling it the final nail. With my arsenal of evidence complete, I made my final strategic move. I knew the lead investor, a sharp, no-nonsense man named Mr. Harrison, valued integrity above all else. The day before the big meeting, I requested an urgent and confidential video call with him. "Mr. Harrison," I began, my voice steady, "I have discovered a conspiracy to defraud you and the other investors, orchestrated from within my own company." For the next hour, I laid it all out. I showed him the forensic accounting report, the chat logs, and played him the audio recording. I watched his expression shift from skepticism to shock, and finally to cold fury. He said, "They plan to do this in the middle of the meeting tomorrow," his voice dangerously low. "Yes," I confirmed, "and I would like to let them." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you have in mind, Ms. Aisha?" "I want them to walk into that boardroom believing they have won. I want them to stand up and announce their coup, and then I want you to see, with your own eyes, what kind of people they are. Just play along, act surprised, and when the time is right, I will handle the rest." A slow smile spread across Mr. Harrison's face. "This is highly unorthodox," he said, "but I must admit, I'm intrigued." "Very well. Let them spring their trap. I'll be waiting." I ended the call, my heart pounding with a terrifying and exhilarating sense of purpose. The stage was set, the actors were in place. All I had to do was wait for the curtain to rise. We are back in the boardroom. The silence following Rohan's shocking announcement is a physical weight. He and Natasha are standing together now, a united front of betrayal. They look down at me from their imaginary throne, expecting tears, pleading, or a hysterical outburst. They get none of it. I take a slow, deliberate breath. I look at Rohan, the man I had promised to love for eternity. I look at Natasha, the woman who held my secrets and my trust. I feel a strange sense of detachment, as if I'm watching a movie of someone else's life. The pain is there, a deep, hollow ache, but it's overshadowed by a cold, clear clarity. I offer them a small, calm smile. "Thank you, Rohan. I was hoping you'd do that," I say, my voice even and steady. Every eye in the room snaps to me. Rohan's confident smirk falters for a fraction of a second. "What did you say?" I turn to my assistant, A loyal young woman named Clara, who knew something was wrong but didn't know the details. Clara, could you please plug in my personal USB drive? There's a presentation I prepared for just this occasion. It's in a folder called Project Nightingale. Clara, looking confused but obedient, does as I ask. The slide with my 5-year growth plan vanishes from the giant screen at the head of the room. It's replaced by a simple file folder icon. The name Project Nightingale is displayed in bold letters. A flicker of unease crosses Natasha's face. She recognizes the name of their shell corporation. "What is this, Aisha?" Rohan demands, his voice losing its smooth edge. "This is not the time for games." "It's not a game, Rohan," I reply, my voice dropping to a near whisper that still carries across the silent room. "It's a reckoning." I click open the first file. It's an audio file. "I believe this belongs to our new CEO," I say, looking directly at Natasha. I press play. Natasha's voice fills the boardroom, smooth and condescending, from the recording I made at the bar. "Don't worry about the company's future, Aisha. Rohan and I have a solid plan to make sure this company is secure, especially after the funding. It's all taken care of." The color drains from Natasha's face. She looks like she's been slapped. The investors start murmuring, their expressions hardening. That's taken out of context," she stammers. "Is it?" I ask calmly. I click on the next file. A series of chat logs flash onto the screen, displayed for everyone to read. I scroll slowly, letting them absorb the sickening words. Their plans, their affair, their cruel mockery of me. She has no idea it's her farewell speech. An audible gasp comes from one of the investors. Rohan is white as a sheet. He looks at me, his eyes wide with a dawning horror. He is finally realizing he wasn't hunting a sheep. He was hunting a tiger. "This is fabricated," he shouts, his voice cracking. "She's making this up. She's trying to sabotage the company because she's unstable." "Am I?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "Let's look at the financials then. You always said I was too emotional for the numbers." I click on the final file. It's not a spreadsheet. It's a beautifully simple, damning flowchart created by the forensic accountant. It shows a series of payments leaving Innovate Next's account and flowing directly into the Nightingale Solutions Shell Corporation. And at the bottom of the flowchart is a scanned copy of the corporate registration with Natasha's name and signature clearly visible as the sole director. The room is dead silent. There is no more confusion. There is only the cold, hard truth laid bare for everyone to see. Rohan and Natasha are frozen, their faces a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. They have been so busy building their trap that they never realized they were the ones walking into it. Then, Mr. Harrison, the lead investor, stands up. His face is like granite. "I think we've seen enough," he says, his voice booming in the quiet room. He looks not at me, but at Rohan and Natasha. "I must commend you. In all my years in business, I have never witnessed a betrayal so audacious, or a downfall so spectacular." He turns to me. "Aisha, you came to me yesterday. You showed me everything. I admit I wanted to see this for myself. You have shown more strength and integrity in the last 5 minutes than these two have shown in their entire lives." Then he pulls out his phone. "Security, please come to the main boardroom. We have 2 individuals who will need to be escorted out." He looks back at the disgraced pair. "And my legal team will be in touch. You will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for conspiracy and fraud." Rohan finally crumbles. "Aisha, please," he begs, his voice pathetic. "Don't do this. We can fix this." I look at the man I once loved, now a stranger with a hollowed-out soul. I feel nothing but a vast, empty pity. Fix this? I reply, my voice devoid of all emotion. There's nothing left to fix, Rohan. You and Natasha broke everything. Now you get to live with the pieces. As two security guards enter the room and move towards them, Natasha finally breaks, sobbing hysterically. But no one is looking at her with sympathy. They are looking at her with disgust. I watch as they are led out of the room, out of my company, and out of my life. The door clicks shut behind them, and in the silence that follows, I feel the weight of the last 6 months lift from my shoulders. It's over. I am free.
The aftermath was swift and brutal. Rohan and Natasha faced a mountain of legal trouble. Mr. Harrison's lawsuit was just the beginning. They were charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Their assets were frozen, their reputations destroyed. The story of the Boardroom Takedown spread like wildfire through our industry. They became a cautionary tale, their names synonymous with greed and betrayal. They lost everything: their money, their careers, and every last friend who had ever respected them. I heard through the grapevine that they turned on each other before the trial even began, each blaming the other for their downfall. It was a pathetic end to a pathetic partnership. For me, it was the beginning of everything. The investors didn't just stay, they doubled their investment. Mr. Harrison personally championed me. "A leader who can navigate a crisis like that," he said, "is exactly who I want to bet on." The first thing I did was rebrand. Innovate Next was tainted by their memory. I renamed the company Phoenix Innovations because that's what we did. We rose from the ashes, stronger and more brilliant than before. I promoted my loyal assistant, Clara, to head of operations, and we rebuilt the company culture from the ground up, based on the principles of transparency, integrity, and mutual respect. The year that followed was the most challenging and rewarding of my life. Without Rohan's cynical pragmatism and Natasha's secret sabotage holding me back, my creativity flourished. I led my team with passion and a clear vision. We launched new products, secured major clients, and our profits soared. Phoenix Innovations became the success story I had always dreamed of, but it was sweeter because I had built it on my own terms. It's been 2 years now. I'm sitting in my corner office, looking out at the glittering city skyline. The office is twice as big as the old one. My team is a family, bound by a shared purpose. I no longer work myself to the bone trying to prove my worth. I work because I love what I do. I finally took my first real vacation last month. I went to a quiet beach, turned off my phone, and for the first time in years, I just breathed. I felt the sun on my skin and realized that the scars from their betrayal were finally starting to fade. They didn't break me, they forged me. Sometimes the worst thing that can ever happen to you is the very thing that sets you free. They tried to steal my dream, but all they did was clear the path for me to build a better one. They thought they were closing a chapter of my life, but in reality, they just handed me a pen and a blank page to write a much better story. And this one is all mine.